It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. You can find me at Opperman Investigations and Digital Forensic Consulting if you reach out to me through my email, oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com. Otherwise, check me out at Patreon, the Opperman Report Patreon. Everything you hear Monday to Friday on AM/FM radio you can find over at Patreon with the ads and the commercials cut out. It's ad-free, commercial-free, plus plenty of free stuff, all kinds of free content put up there all the time. It's worth it just to sign up for free and just get that email of the new stuff we put up all the time because there's always good stuff. FBI documents, Epstein stuff, always. Exclusive stuff you won't find anywhere else, too. Otherwise, Friday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. For 14 long years, you get 3 hours of brand new content every Friday night, 1 hour of me live solo, and then 2 hours of podcast interviews. Always exclusive stuff you can never find anywhere else. And tonight we have a returning guest, Anthony Andrews. You could find him on Twitter, which he has voluminous quality of work. He's constantly posting up to Twitter, X, under the name Anthon7Y Andrews. So it would be just like Anthony, but the number 7 in between the N and the Y, and then the word Andrews, Anthon7EY Andrews, and also Anthony7 Andrews on his Substack. And this guy's doing great work. We've had him on several times before. And we've had him on before also talking about Paolo Zampolli, who was the fellow who brought Melania Kraus or whatever, Melania Trump over here from whatever country she came from. I don't even remember at the moment.
Slovenia.
Of course, Slovenia. Of course. Moose and Squirtle. What do you call it? But he's got some stuff. He's been talking exclusively to Amanda Ungaro, who is Paolo Zampoli's ex-wife, who Paolo Zampolli had her deported by ICE. And this guy's on the cutting edge of this story here. He's directly in touch with all the people involved. Anthony Andrews, I know you're there. Say hello to the audience. Hey.
Hello, everyone. Hey, thanks for having me again. It's never a boring day,
That is the truth. Remind the audience, who is Anthony Andrews?
I am an internet sleuth is, I think, the best description. I've done some deep dives in a number of things, as we've talked about on previous podcasts. Not nearly the extent of what I've done completely, but the other, besides being able to dig in and find information that no one else finds, I also am able to connect the dots that either the law enforcement chooses not to, or they look the other way on. But I think my best attribute is the ability to get people to talk to me. And I think, slow and steady wins the race. I got a funny story to tell you real quick about Amanda and how we finally got in touch. I just on Saturday, just last Saturday, I got a comment from her in on my Twitter account, my ex account. She commented on something I posted about Paolo, and at that moment is when I realized that it was actually her. And it turns out she had tried to contact me back in early December last year. She had sent me a private message, a DM on X, and I had briefly looked at it, but I have kind of a vetting process when I get messages on X, because I've been targeted so many times, as we've discussed also, that I assumed it was a fake account. It was a fairly new account. She had barely any followers. She didn't have any content. So automatically I was just like, yeah, there's no way this is Amanda reaching out to me. And so I ignored it. I actually did not reply anything. So Saturday, when she commented, I realized it was her. And so we connected on Signal, and we talked. We even did a video call that night. She sent me a bunch of text voicemails as well, and a bunch of documents. And I apologize profusely for not believing that it was her to begin with. And I tried to explain to her, my experience and why I've been targeted so much, and how I have this process. But I think it's difficult to understand unless you know who I am and what I've written about. It's kind of funny. So she had also been in contact with Becca Day, who's on TikTok. And Becca has done pretty much almost since the day I started, has done the same similar work on TikTok. She's done some deep dives into Paolo Zampolli as well, probably even in some cases going on off into other areas that I did not go into. So, equally, I would give her credit for, the spotlight on Zampolli also. And
real quick though, Anthony, how do you spell Becca Day? Because it's not the common spelling. What is that, Becca Day?
It's Bekah, and then the last name is Day.
Okay.
And on TikTok, it is just Becca Day. She has 1.5 million followers on TikTok, so I think she is pretty easy to find. She's been covering a lot of stuff with Epstein, beyond and Zampolli since about the time I started, as well as a number of other great things that she is I would say the TikTok equivalent of me. So we connected last week through an account that follows me, said that they could connect me with her. So we connected last week, and we actually talked on the phone for a little bit. And I think both of our brains were about to explode because we kind of have the same brain. So we're collaborating on information and really working to try to get all of this story out there because, a lot of people had no idea who Paolo Zampolli is. Even to this day, many people don't know who he is. And, he is, I called him a smoking gun since the beginning, just based on information I knew then. And now, given the information that I'm learning from Amanda and other sources, it's a little insane how people do not know who this is, because he connects literally to everything having to do with this corrupt administration from nearly every angle.
Let's try this, because when I describe Paolo Zampolli, how I usually describe him is that he brought Melania over from Svetlana there, Svetlana. He brought her over in that visa, the Einstein visa. He was friends with Epstein, and he and Epstein tried to purchase John Cassablancas modeling agency.
Yes, in 2004, both Zampolli and Epstein tried to purchase elite models, the U.S. version from Paolo Zampolli. They were outbid by Eddie and Jules Trump, believe it or not, although they are no relation. They are actually originally from none other than South Africa, and which, also ties into a number of other things that we could talk about, whether it be Peter Thiel or Elon Musk. Initially I thought, it's just a huge coincidence that this guy outbid them, yada, yada, yada. But it turns out he is still in connection with them. Zampolli posted a picture, a selfie, because that's what Zampolli does on Instagram and on even Twitter, of himself
all day long with everybody.
Of himself with Eddie Trump just in January this year. So, Amanda had told me that.
Wait, real quick. Today, Paolo Zampolli has been appointed the UN business ambassador by Donald Trump. This former guy, I don't know, there's a word that starts with the letter P, but there's this former guy with this modeling business operation here. I don't know how other you can describe this guy, but is now currently today the U.S. business ambassador to the UN with this background.
Well, and the insanity of it all is just, there's another rabbit hole I started diving down today And I had always thought it strange because I've reviewed his Instagram account and a number of other things, Facebook and other things like I usually do. And I always scroll back to the beginning of their account. And I think I had even mentioned it before. The very first picture he posted on his Instagram at the end of 2013 when he created his Instagram account is a picture of himself with Bibi Netanyahu. Additionally, there are other pictures within that same time frame, within the year or so after he started his account, of himself with Sergei Lavrov in Russia. He was also in contact with the Netanyahus a number of other times. There's also pictures of them together with Amanda as well on his Instagram page, and a number of high-profile people long before Trump was even in office, or he had any type of influence through his connection through Trump at that time being in office. And
there's a picture of him with Bernie Kerik, and we can't overlook Bernie Kerik's connection to Lawrence Ray. And Lawrence Ray was pimping out these girls for $8,000 a day from this little mediocre website. That's this had to be the people he knew that he socialized with. Lawrence Ray, he was the best man at Bernie Kerik's wedding. He was pimping out those girls at St. Lawrence University. And on the day of 9/11, when you see that picture of Bernie Kerik and Rudy Giuliani, Bernie Kerik's best man and best friend was Lawrence Ray, who at that time was married and pimping out his girlfriend for $8,000 a day.
Oh my God. And I think we're going to find so much more of that as these files, people start to dig in, because even with what's been released, the method that they released things in,
Right.
was obstructionist. It was in a way that made it difficult for us to put the story together. But now that we've got, thousands of people looking at these files, and groups like the one I'm working with EpsteinWiki.com, we're putting together pieces of the story after looking at several thousand files, and there's a clear picture being painted of these, the systematic abuse that had happened across various levels. And Amanda's story is not the same story as an Epstein trafficked victim. She actually was not a victim of Epstein. She's been very clear with me. And she just shared with me right before this call, and I also posted it on my Twitter page just moments ago. She shared with me an article that was just published within the last hour from O Globo, which is Brazil's largest newspaper nationwide. And if you don't know, for the people that are listening, Brazil has a population of over 200 million people. It's not a small nation. And, their largest newspaper just published an article about Paolo and Amanda. And the article that was published tonight versus the one that was published last night, this one, it talks about her trip on Epstein's plane and how there were other girls on there. And she told me specifically when I was talking to her that she remembers being on the plane. She was on the plane with Ghislaine, Jeffrey, and Jean-Luc Brunell. Jean-Luc Brunell was her agent. Did you have a question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say let's back up. Let's back up and start. Who was Amanda, and how did she meet Zampolli?
So at 13 years old in Brazil, Amanda was recruited by Elite Models, the Brazil version of Elite Models. At some point in the early 90s, Elite Models started branching out worldwide, and Cassablancas didn't have control of all of those things, and eventually sold some of these different versions of Elite, the United States version, Brazil, etc., to other entities using that same name. And so she worked for Elite Models, and she had only met Cassablancas through Zampolli. She actually never met him through working through Elite because she was out of Brazil. So at 13, she started working with Elite. At about 16, she started traveling more and worldwide. And 17 is when Paolo kind of finally connected with her in a way that he was able to convince her to come to the United States and be with and work for him and his ID models. But she had worked for Ford, and a number of basically every high profile modeling agency back then she had actually done work for. Then Paolo had been pursuing her. She said that she was at a party in New York, like a screen party or something for a movie, and or for models, and she had was introduced to Zampolli, and she kind of blew him off there. It reminded me of the story of Melania, where Melania says she was like not interested, and Trump gave her the number. Kind of the same thing happened with Amanda, with Paolo, and she went back to Brazil, and Paolo actually flew to Brazil to pursue her, and at this time she was 16, maybe 17, and at 17 is when he finally, the only word that comes to mind is won his stalking, and she, being a young 17-year-old she was pretty much on her own that time. She really didn't have any guidance. She believed him, and she moved back to the United States with him, and that's when the abuse began. When she flew on Epstein's plane to Paris, it was basically like they just happened to be able to catch a flight on Epstein's plane because he had room rather than catching a normal flight. So, but Epstein also had Ghislaine, or however you say it, Ghislaine, and also the article talks about 30 young girls between 14 and 16-year-old is what Amanda had said. Personally, she actually
Wait a second. Epstein had 30 girls on the plane?
That's what the article says. I thought.
What year was this?
It was 2002.
Really?
Yes. So
okay.
I just posted the article so you can see it on my thing. But the headline says Brazilian ex-model describes Epstein flight. There are about 30 girls, beautiful and very young. So there were about 30 girls on the flight, she said, and she was uncomfortable because she's like, they're not models. She knew they weren't models going to do what she was doing, so she wasn't sure what was going on. So she said she kind of kept to herself, and she honestly said that she kind of acted a little bit like a bitch. I wouldn't use bitch, but the way she said it was like kind of like I was just kind of rude because I didn't know what was going on, so I didn't want to have anything to do with it. So I didn't really engage with anybody. She says she did talk to Ghislaine, who just asked her about where she was from and whatnot briefly. And she said she did talk to Epstein as well, but she said she was never abused. She was not part of that whole thing.
Okay, she was never abused by Epstein, but how old was she when Zampolli got his hands on her?
17. So she was abused by Zampolli, and then she was abused by Zampolli for nearly 30 years to this day. There will be more information that will be coming out this week. She shared some things with me specifically. I'm hesitant to share some things only because we don't want to affect her custody battle, which is next month. And so we now know New York Times confirmed on Friday, although I had been talking about it for a while, as well as Becca Day on TikTok's been talking about it for a while, that Zampolli actually pulled strings to have her moved into the ICE custody from law enforcement after she was arrested. And tomorrow there will be an article coming out that actually details that a little bit more. That involves her husband's firsthand experience as well.
Well, describe that to us now, because she's divorcing Zampolli, and then suddenly she's being deported, and was because the way they described in the New York Times is one day she's at Mar-a-Lago having dinner with Trump and Melania, and the next day she's in ICE custody in an ICE detention camp.
Well, exactly, and that's the thing is, here we have, and I've had some pushback online, obviously by MAGA trolls and whatnot, that are like, well, she was part of it. She was at the White House. She was at Mar-a-Lago, and what she had told me specifically is that she would spend, they actually were one of two couples. Her and Paolo were one of two couples that were always invited to every holiday event at Mar-a-Lago or the White House. So if you look at Paolo's Instagram, he shows a lot of pictures of Christmases and New Year's and 4th of July's and other things. And, she did say that Trump really didn't ever talk to Paolo. It was mostly, Paolo was more connected to, Melania, of course, because Paolo brought Melania in at, when Melania was in Europe. And, the thing that actually, going back to what I talked about earlier that I just stumbled upon today is I had always wondered why Paolo, a Milanese native, who's a rich man who sold his father's business when he was a teen, and he moved to the United States and he started the ID models, and he brought Melania to the United States under questionable circumstances. She worked for several months, earning several $1,000s on a tourist visa, which was illegal. Just so everybody understands that it's black and white. There's no question about that having happened. Eventually,
would there be a reward if we were to turn her in?
Yeah, ICE detention.
Under your name. We'll turn it under your name, Anthony.
Exactly.
And split the reward cash, okay?
So she was saying that Trump never really talked to Paolo, but obviously appointed him to these various things. They're not, and a lot of people, when you read about Paolo, he's very arrogant. He's just that guy, that kind of skeezy, sleazy guy, with the thick Italian accent that thinks he's better than the world. And in the article that was published yesterday in O Globo, which was front page news on that newspaper with a large picture of Amanda, so it's as if New York Times had a front page, article of her on it, which of course they went to right now. But she actually discusses how Zampolli was, doing various things to affect the arrest and whatnot, and her husband and everything else. But with the ICE detention, what had happened was apparently her and Paula were never married. I want to clear that up because even when you look online, sometimes Google says they were married, sometimes Google says they weren't married. But she told me clearly he never married her. My impression is that was part of his ability to control her as well. Men string women along for years telling them they're going to marry him. So that's from what I understand, part of probably his MO in terms of maintaining control over her. But what is curious is, I had always wondered how this Milanese guy who, was so close to the White House and stuff happened to have a Dominica UN ambassadorship in the past. And, he touts that a lot, and even his Instagram name and his Twitter names are Ambassador Zampolli. She had told me that when Trump got elected, and this was in the article yesterday as well, or that came out earlier this morning, she had told me that when Trump was elected, Paolo acted like he had been elected as well. He started being super arrogant, walking around trying to make deals and do all this stuff because his proximity to Trump and everything else. So,
But this ambassador, that was Dominican Republic, he was?
No, not the Dominican Republic, the small island nation of Dominica. So when I started diving down into this morning, now that I'm back to work, I don't have nearly as much time as I had for the last 2 months. But this morning before I went to work, I started diving down that rabbit hole a little bit in terms of ambassadorships from Dominica, because it just seemed unusual to me. And knowing some information that Amanda had told me kind of talks about, and there will be stuff that'll come out within the next couple of days that talks about how he uses his he had used his diplomatic immunity in a way to avoid accountability on various things, because that's what they do. And she says that was a big part of it too. Even when she had her ambassadorship from Grenada. So she was a UN ambassador from Grenada for 10 years as well. So more of information on that will come out very soon. I can't necessarily share all of it. But as far as I'm concerned, as far as the Dominica ambassadorship, when I started looking at it online, and I had my Epstein Wiki group help me kind of disseminate and look online for information about Dominica ambassadorships to the UN, there are several articles that talk about fraudulent selling of those ambassadorships over the years. So I found a list that includes a Russian oligarch who's worth $8 billion that's connected to Roman Abramovich, and a number of other very high-profile people worldwide. And in some cases, some of them, once they got in trouble for certain things, they fled the country using their diplomatic immunity to avoid accountability. So I will have more on this as I dig a little bit deeper, but there's definitely something serious going on down in the Dominica and in the Caribbean as far as these UN ambassadorships being sold.
But these weren't like ambassadorships America to Dominica. These were...
They were UN ambassadorships. So what they were is that allowed people to come to America under a diplomatic visa from the UN, and they also have access. I think each country. I think Dominica has access to 166 countries because, along with the passport, the UN passport that they were buying, essentially, is from what I can tell on these articles that I've already read, they also were granted, I believe, a 10-year visa, which allowed them to travel from Dominica. It allowed travel to 166 different countries, and for Grenada, it allowed travel to about 147 countries, from what I remember. So definitely, there's some meat there. There's some there. I just have to start digging a little bit more. I've always believed, and only because I've read articles as well that were written years ago that talked about Epstein being the visa guy for not Epstein, Zampolli being the visa guy for the Epstein operation. So he would traffic these girls from South Africa or South America and Eastern Europe into the United States and procure them visas like he did Melania Trump. And but this Dominica UN passport situation seems to be a separate but equal corrupt situation that he was involved in. So I think more and more we're going to learn. She shared some things with me that I'll eventually be able to share that lead clearly to a massive amount of corruption and criminality that's occurred surrounding Paolo Zampolli.
Well, how did Amanda Ungaro, how did she wind up in a position where she was in this country without the right paperwork that would qualify for the deportation?
Well, and that's part of, do you really have to qualify for deportation these days? You know what I'm saying, especially if you know somebody. But basically what she had explained to me, and we haven't gotten into it tremendously, but basically she was granted that visa for 10 years, which I think it would have expired in 2024, which was just a couple of years ago. In 2023 is when she finally broke away from Zampolli. They were still kind of going back and forth because of custody. They had originally broken up briefly in 2018, and I think 2021 is when the final breakup occurred. She also shared with me in 2023 information about an abuse victim that's directly connected to Mar-a-Lago that happened in 2023. There was a police incident report that was actually filed. And again, I'll share more information once I can.
Wait a second. She's saying that there's a 2023 underage sexual battery case in Mar-a-Lago that's unreported?
It was reported. It was reported. Well, it was reported to the police, and she says there is a police incident report, but nothing, as far as I know so far, came out of that.
Nothing in the news, no litigation.
Nope. And Zampolli has, and I can share with you off the record, offline, a little bit more about this. But yes, and in Becca Day's Substack, she actually discusses this in one of her posts about Zampolli and Amanda. She goes into a little more detail about this. But yes.
So she's aware of this too, then?
Yes. There was a
Has anybody pulled the police reports on this?
No. And that's what,
Fascinating.
Again, I mean, my brain is about to explode because of the last several days, and usually I have a lot going on anyway, so I'm still trying to find time. I'm like, couldn't this have happened 2 weeks ago when I was still not working?
But now this case at Mar-a-Lago, like, who's the offender? Is the offender like an employee at Mar-a-Lago? Is Zampolli? Who's the guy who's did the rape?
Offender was Zampolli.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There's one part of it I wish I could share with you, but I just can't right now. But
Gotcha.
The key part of it, that it should be national news. And as soon as I know I can share it, I 100% will. Another thing to share is I also was contacted by a woman today who also worked for the UN, and she had met Amanda. She had witnessed abuse as well of Amanda from Zampolli, more verbal abuse, but abuse still the same. So she had witnessed, that ongoing abuse that had occurred with Amanda over the years. And I also just talked to someone from the Daily Beast who is looking into a lot of things that we're talking about too. So it's a lot going on.
Yeah, I'd say. So now, how did it come about that she was deported?
So from what she was saying, and there's information that's been shared just today, and there will be information that's shared tomorrow as well, Paolo Zampolli set up the arrest of her and her husband, which closed down her husband's business in the process. He had already been harassing them for several months, and had previously harassed another person that Amanda was seeing prior to her meeting the person she ended up marrying. And he is only a green card holder. So even Paolo, I've seen information where Paolo was like, well, you're not going to be able to get citizenship because of his green card, So Paolo has been influencing things in a way that has not allowed the criminal investigation to go, and or the indictment or the the dealings around their arrest and everything to go smoothly. And when she was arrested back in June last year, the interesting thing that I connected to that is she was arrested. Her and her husband were arrested in June. The police came in, but they had also been to their home in March, and they had been harassed in March of last year, handcuffed, thrown against the wall, their home searched.
And what state was this? Florida?
Florida, yeah. And then come June, they were arrested, and she was held. Then she shared paperwork with me, also for detainment by ICE, which is what the New York Times story is about. And the New York Times story, if you've looked at it, is very minimal. It does not go into any details. She shared a number of details with me. I think when they talked to Paolo, and from what she told me, they gave him basically, editing rights. So a lot of the stuff wasn't shared. It basically just confirms that he had pulled strings to have ICE remove her from law enforcement, and then she disappeared for 3.5 months.
Wait, Zampolli is admitting this?
Yes. So,
whoa.
Yeah. So, and New York Times has confirmed it. Like I said, and now another outlets have also confirmed it as well. So, again, I have some text and some other information that's been shared with me that actually solidifies this claim as well. and out of her protection, everything else, and also making sure that I don't interfere in the custody battle whatsoever. I don't want to share certain stuff until the proper time, and she's okay with it.
Well, let's back up a little bit. You said that the police came to her house and handcuffed him and harassed him. What were the charges at that point? What was the reason for that?
In March, I don't know exactly what it was, but in in June when they were arrested, it had to do with the business that her husband owned, and they were saying that she was conducting improper procedures that she wasn't licensed to do, and then they were also charged with fraud.
What kind of procedures did that? Like medical procedures?
Yeah, like liposuction procedures. It was a cosmetic thing, South Florida, let's pull all these old ladies as best as we can. And let's turn them into Mar-a-Lago ladies. We all know what they look like. And but from what I've seen, and even from what even Becca Day has seen, and she wrote about this, it really is unsubstantiated claims, and they really have no evidence, and the case should fall apart. Again, I have more information that I can't necessarily share at this time about it, but it is being influenced directly by Zampolli. He is pulling strings to make things more difficult for them. And so basically when she was arrested with her husband and incarcerated, he was released on bail, and he now is at home with an ankle monitor. And like I said, he contacted me this morning. There's a language barrier. He only speaks Portuguese, so we're working out how we can communicate best. But they kept her in custody because there was also an order for ICE to come and remove her from law enforcement, and that's when she disappeared. And she actually went to 2 ICE facilities, one in Florida, and then I believe the other one might have been in Texas or Louisiana. And in one of the substects that Becca wrote, she goes into great detail about what she witnessed there. And that's just a whole other angle of all of this. I mean, there's so many pieces of this puzzle that relate to everything that's going on right now, even though her story is not the same as normal Epstein survivors, because she wasn't abused in those circumstances, but she's very much connected to all of it. And her story is equally terrible in terms of what she went through and continues to go through. Her son, then, she was torn from her son. He lived with her, and when she was arrested, she asked for them to allow her to call somebody to come take care of her son, and instead they took him to the police department with her. So,
how old are the kids?
Yeah, he's 15 now. So this happened last year, so he was probably 14 when it occurred. And then he eventually made it back to Brazil with Amanda, and other things that I can't discuss influenced his decision or influenced him to move back to the United States. And Paolo, acts as if, he won the battle. But the battle's far from over. Amanda's a fighter, and she definitely needs her story told.
But the kid's 15 and he's in Brazil.
No, he is now in the United States.
Living with Zampolli.
With Paolo Zampolli. But they're not in the United States. They're actually traveling. And let me look real quick. I want to make sure I can share what I can share. They're traveling the world, and in one instance, Zampolli says, well, he can't come back to the United States because he's on a mission right now. But I think he's avoiding the United States because he is avoiding the scrutiny of some of the things that are happening, including the false arrest and the ICE and everything else. And he has his son with him, and his son has not been in school like he should be. So Amanda's primary concern is about her son and his safety and his opportunities in the future. And she feels that Zampolli is doing things in a way that's going to make it very difficult for her son to live a normal life.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Anyway.
So,
15 years old, kind of things going to be dangled in front of his, what do you call it now? But I'm still not understanding what the grounds did they have to ICE immigration have to go after Amanda? Just these charges with these unlicensed cosmetic procedures? Give me a break. I'm
sorry. So I think ICE, because her visa that she had expired, and she has paperwork showing that she shared with me, showing that she was in the process of attempting to, correct what was transpiring.
Right.
And part of the story she had told me is, over the years she had talked to Paolo and said, I really want to get my, citizenship. I want to get my stuff in order. And he would string her along. And he would tell her, oh, we'll take care of this. We'll do this. But first, let's do this. And I have more details about that I can't go into directly right now, but I will in time. But essentially, he manipulated everything in a way that she wasn't able to even properly find a way to be brought into nation, or to be in our nation. So essentially, yes, she was here illegally, but it's not that she was hiding. She actually had submitted paperwork. She has paperwork where she was trying to go through the process. But as we know with ICE now, that none of that works anyway. They're picking up people that are going to immigration hearings, and citizenship things. So, here you have a White House connected person directly connected to Trump and Melania who made a call and said, hey, take care of this for me. And now his ex, who he was in a heated custody battle with, is in Brazil, and she's been disconnected from her son because of this situation having been manipulated.
And that's like the oldest trick in the book with these guys, these traffickers. They get these girls.
Oh, yeah.
You take their ID. They got no identification. They got no phone. They got nothing. It's, or God forbid they got a warrant. Now that they can't even call the cops. So
yeah. Well,
does
go ahead.
Does she want to come back to the States?
I don't necessarily think she wants to come back to States. She just wants to live a normal life and move forward, move on, and have a good life. She was very happy that she met a man that she loved and that she could build a life with. And she wanted to be able to do that with her son. And obviously Zampolli opposed all of that and has made their life extremely difficult. I mean, they have not had. He had invested into a multi-million-dollar business. It was a training facility for cosmetic procedures. He had invested $3 million in it, and their business got shut down. And he hasn't been able to do anything because he's on an ankle monitor, and it's been a full year. He's had to sell his condo to get some finances, but a lot of that is already kind of accounted for in terms of just their bills and everything.
It's depleted, yeah. Now, because I was going to ask, it doesn't, if they're reaching out to Anthony Andrews, they don't have a PR company they can turn to, or do they have lawyers, or what's going on with this? It sounds like
she told me yesterday that she contacted the Brazilian authorities and they agreed to get involved in things. The lawyers that they have involved clearly, in some cases, Paolo had manipulated them. Again, I can't go into details, but it's clear that there was some manipulation going on there. They had actually paid some money to several $1,000s to a specific lawyer who actually did not really do anything to help them in any way that was good. And now they are under the impression and likely have some validity to it that their lawyer was influenced as well, the one that was supposed to help them. So
what about Zampolli? Has he made any public statement about all this? He must. Has he said anything about this?
He declined to comment for the articles that have been published. I do know that. He has posted on his X account in 2 cases. He's posted about fake news and hoaxes and stuff. So we obviously know whatever's coming out is true because he's using Donald Trump's words. And I know, we had the New York Times article just come out. Besides the Brazilian newspaper that's doing several articles this week, day after day, there is one other extremely high-profile publication that will be releasing an article revealing a lot more. But that's Paolo I'll let everybody go look at Paolo's Twitter since nobody else. He's got 16,000 followers and never gets any engagement except for me because I always call him a sleaze bag every day. It just amazes me that out of the entire world, I'm the only person that's harassing Paolo Zampolli because he's.
Yeah, that's so true. I was going to ask you, what about does his name come up in the Epstein files? Does Epstein still talk about him?
Oh yeah. No, and the crazy thing is in the Epstein files, he's brought up a couple different times. It's interesting, and it took me some time to figure this out, but his name is misspelled a number of ways. There's only one L. On some of the email, it's an E instead of an A in other emails, so you have to kind of play with to find the actual emails about him. But the one main email that has been published and a lot of people are talking about is he's listed with a number of other people, and they list them as killers.
Oh, really?
They just list them as killers. Now, I have not delved into that with Amanda yet, but once we, develop a stronger relationship, I think I'll be able to get more information from her about
In what
that.
context are they listed as killers?
Your guess is as good as mine, but some of those names aren't good that are listed with him. They just, they're just listed. And Epstein specifically stated in one of his emails as well that Zampolli is not a good person. He be careful of Zampolli. I forget exactly who he was talking to. I think it was Ehud Barak he was talking to, who's trying to connect with Zampolli about something. And Epstein warned him about Zampolli. So it's clear that everybody knew exactly the type of person that Zampolli is. I mean, anybody off the street can watch him speak and whatever, and he's just a sleazeball.
But also too, Cassablancas, Gianluca Brunell, why isn't the press all over? It's just
Well, and that's what we're dealing with in the United States right now. Is the press isn't touching anything. I'm fortunate that we've got I'm talking to the Daily Beast guys in the UK that I was talking to, the one you've talked to before, and so I have some traction. I talked to a reporter for Radio France. And I think we're going to be talking next month. I think he wants to do an interview with me. So, at least worldwide, it's getting more attention. I think eventually with the amount of pressure and information that's coming out, the United States is going to have no choice. The media is going to have to pick it up at some point.
Just think, this guy's a lifelong friend of the First Lady of the United States of America.
Absolutely. Yes.
Since she was how old? She was like 16, 17 years old. 15?
No, well, Amanda was 15, I believe, when she first met Zampolli. It was 17 when he finally captured her, we'll say.
And Melania, how was Melania when she met this guy?
Melania was probably in her early 20s at the time.
Okay. And what's the deal about this woman you think is Melania's daughter? What's her connection to Zampolli?
Brina Naus. When I first started searching about Zampolli, I did just a basic Google search, Paolo Zampolli, and the third thing that came up was a picture of Brina Naus, and I'm like, why the hell is this picture coming up of this person? But I was like, but her last name's Naus, and she's from Slovenia, and she's connected to Paolo Zampolli. What the heck's going on here? So I did a deep dive, as you know, and the more I dug, the more questions came up. She was born in Slovenia, 39 minutes from where Melania grew up. She was born when Melania was 15 years old, although there is information that says her birth date may be incorrect, which I will explain in the future when I write more about this. And she may have been born in, the following year more in the middle to early of the year, which would make Melania closer to 16. and it aligns a little bit better with the time frame of Melania's going to school away from home and living with her sister. There's speculation, and this was long before I even started investigating of what occurred surrounding that. That's when Stain Jerko found Melania when she was about 17. There's this, if you actually dig into it like I have, the story is not consistent. It seems like they've intentionally obfuscated some of the details. So I call it Melania's missing years. There's about 5 years that Melania just kind of disappeared off the radar, anywhere from 3 to 5 years. In some cases, what I found says that she was in school and she graduated high school and then she went to university. I think that's a complete lie. And just like her biography stated that there was something in the biography that was a lie specifically. I'll have to think about it. But there's some clear lies from her biography. But so basically what I think happened, and based off the research I've done and some of the information I've seen that doesn't say she was in school, as soon as Stain Jerko found her, it was kind of her way to kind of break free of Slovenia, and she got into the modeling industry. What I've seen shows me she went to I'm trying to think, allegedly we'll use, she went to school for about a year. It seems like she was shuffled away from her home, which would have been the time frame that she was possibly pregnant with Brina Naus. She was shuffled away from home and to go to school. She basically only went to school for about a year and then went into the modeling industry with this Stain Jerko guy. And then she kind of falls off the radar until about 91 or 92, which I've also written extensively about the possibility of her having been in Germany and, in fact, possibly even being in direct contact with Vladimir Putin, who happened to be in Dresden at the time, working with the Stasi. Now, this may seem extra sensational, but I have dug, and I've dug, and I've dug, and I have found plenty of material that supports this theory of her not only being in Germany with Putin, but also the possibility of her having a child very young. Because Brina, when I found information that she talks about on her Instagram showing what supposedly is her parents, they go by Naus, which is K-N-A-U-S. Brina goes by how Melania had Germanized her name, which was K-N-A-U-S-S, but the true name is Navs, which is K-N-A-V-S. And my impression, allegedly, is that Brina was shuffled off to other family members, and she was raised by them.
Is that a popular name over there in Slovenia?
No, Navs is not a popular name in Slovenia. In Melania's biography, she never mentions having ever been in Germany. But in an article I found from 2 decades ago, Paolo Zampolli is quoted as talking about Melania having worked in Germany, modeling in Germany. And you also have to consider, German is one of the supposed languages she speaks fluently.
Supposedly.
Yeah.
He doesn't even speak English. He speaks English fluent. But, it's interesting.
I think her best language is Russian.
Oh, but just think, if she was involved with Putin, just imagine the dirt that he would have on her, and the knowledge he would have about her and Epstein and Zampolli and all this stuff. Just common knowledge. You know what I mean? Without intelligence knowledge, just common knowledge. Because this guy.
Let me add a couple things about Brina real quick. There's a couple. I go through her Instagram pretty regularly, looking at what she's doing and what's going on. In 2016, I think Brina Naus tagged a photo of herself with Paolo Zampolli at an event. Amanda told me she was actually at that event with them, and Amanda has met Brina now. When I had asked her some questions about what she knew about Brina, it was really nothing. She had no idea about her background or anything, so she was kind of surprised when I shared some of the stuff with her, but she didn't necessarily, discredit any of it. And on her social media, there's two instances that are fairly recent that really raise the question of what's going on. In January of this year, in mid-January, when Melania's movie was being promoted, and the posters came out that we're all familiar with, they're black and white. They show the standard lettering above of Melania, and then it shows Melania in black and white posing. Brina in mid-January posted a picture of herself with her name, and it was literally the same font and the same stylistic imagery of Melania's poster for her biography that came out on January 30th. Prior to that, I had also found a picture of Brina. I'm not sure where she was. I think she might have been in Milan, or she might have even been in Paris. And she's wearing a top coat, a tan top coat, long down past her knees. And on the back of it, it had some writing. Exactly like, it wasn't the same writing, but just like Melania's "I don't care."
What about Brett Ratner? Does he have any connections to Zampolli?
I have not found any connection to Brett as far as Zampolli. There's obvious connections with Brett to Epstein that are in the files that we've come across. And a lot of people don't realize that Brett Ratner is he's the producer, director of Melania's biography movie that just came out. But there are some very serious connections when it comes to Brett Ratner and Epstein going back years as well. So there's an obvious unknown information that we don't have yet that will really tie together why Ratner, did what he did as far as making this movie, and the flop that was versus and it was probably being strong-armed for one reason or another because of what's going on right now in the world.
Well, that's part of it. They make an official story, put out a movie, an official story. Like everybody who looks at the Jeff McDonald case just remembers that movie, and they think of, well, I know that because I saw the movie, So, they come out with an official movie to control the story.
Well, and let me add to that. I think, a lot of times when I'm sourcing information, using AI, whether it was Grok before Elon, limited everybody's ability to use it if you don't have a blue check, or whether it be, Google AI, it very much references official biographies, which aren't necessarily factual, So a lot of what we see online, and I know you've seen it, people are trying to use AI to debunk stuff that we're posting on stupid things. But, that's the way that they're doing it, because AI is referencing official biographies, which are lies anyway, But it's just like when I posted, and I'm sure you've seen it, that memo from Roger Stone to Donald Trump in March of 2024, telling him that he can put together a plan to remove guns from his opponents.
Right.
And when you look at, there's three different sources that'll tell you that it's false, but all three of those sources only reference Roger Stone's tweets as the debunking of it. So here you have the person debunking it for these for these is the liar himself. We live in a weird world now.
Anthony Andrews, we are out of time. Great stuff as usual. Great stuff. As soon as this, does she have a thick accent, this Ngura?
Yeah. She has a pretty solid accent, but she speaks English very well. I mean, we talked on the phone for about 20 minutes as well, and she sent me several voicemails. So yeah, she's got a pretty solid accent, but
I hate
she's
doing
very
interviews with thick accents, but if you can get me an interview, I'll struggle my way through it. Anthony.
Yeah, I'll talk to her.
Anthony Andrews. It's Anthon7Y Andrews, and then on Substack it's Anthony7Andrews. You can find them both on Twitter and Substack. Great stuff always, man. Like, you could just sit there all day long and read this guy. He's always got great stuff coming out. So, Anthony, thank you so much, man, okay?
I appreciate you. Thanks for having me on again.
Good night and get well. Wait, what about your GoFundMe? Because I know you got your knees.
I'm past all that. Don't worry about it.
Past? You're good. Okay. Our friend here
the
got
universe
brand
always
new...
provides. I'm not one who tries to monetize on anything. Eventually, I'll write a book. I'll make money then.
You can't monetize your knees. This guy just had a double knee transplant with prosthetics put into his knees there. So he was flat on his back for months, typing away on Twitter there, giving us all this information for free. So thank you so much, my friend, Anthony Andrews.
My pleasure. Take care.
Good night.